I was not ever really close to my father, but he had been in the hospital having his gallbladder removed. And I wrote him this note and taped a quarter to it. But I was like, Daddy, here's your quarter, CORDER. Here's your quarter. I hope you can use this to get a drink from the machine or whatever. I was probably sick. And I think I wrote it like on just a white piece of paper. But when he died and they went through his wallet, that note was in his wallet. So he
Oh,
kept that note
Right.
all those years because I was 30 when he did. So for 25 years, he had had that note, and the paper was yellowed, and
Wow.
you could tell that, the quarter was missing, but the tape was still there where the quarter had just slipped away from the tape. But the fact that he kept that and I wasn't close to him was so touching to me. I guess in that moment, it healed a lot of scars. It healed a lot of me feeling that he didn't care because he clearly did, or he wouldn't have carried that for 25 years in his wallet. So I thought that was really sweet. But I also think that you taking the time to write down and say, this made me smile, this meant a lot to me. And I know that's important to children because I remember my daughter was at her father's one weekend and she drew him something. And she came home, she was probably 7 or 8, and she was devastated because she saw it in the garbage. And she was like, he didn't even treasure what I did. So that really does mean a lot to children.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I'm sure her father didn't think anything about it. He was just like, okay, that's cute. I'll throw it away. What am I going to do with it? But it hurt her that he didn't keep anything. So I do think that's one of the sweetest treasures that I had personally, that my father had saved that.
it does make a difference. I remember going through my husband's wallet. That sounds a bit odd now. After he passed away, obviously,
Yeah.
I went through my husband's wallet. But
It's not like a stealing situation.
yeah, I wasn't stealing anything
Right.
from him. No, I wasn't. After he passed away, because I was going through his things, and the very first picture, we had like a semi-arranged marriage. I met him before my parents met him, so it was a little different, but it was kind of a arranged marriage. But he had the very first picture that he had of me was this like little portrait picture, and he'd kept it all those years. Like he'd shifted wallets, and so, but this was in the very last wallet he had, and it was still in there. And I was like, oh my God, it was the sweetest gesture. And again,
Yes.
those tiny little things that you don't know, and when you find out afterwards, you're like, oh my God, that was just so lovely. But yeah, so I think that also kind of informs you about the way you want to move forward.
The touch of human to human is going to be so valuable. I mean, it already is valuable, these letters, someone's handwriting in a note versus, how it feels to receive a text or an email. And people talk about this all the time, right? You can never really convey your feelings and emotions, or they're misconstrued in an email or text, depending on the tone with which it comes across to the reader. But there's just something really personal about handwritten notes. And at my mom's funeral, I think I was telling you all that there were like 800 people at this funeral. She was so well loved. And I can't tell you the countless people that came up to me. My mom, her way of loving people was to write cards to everyone. So when January was coming around, she opened up her notebook to January, and I'm not kidding you, she must have written, well, whoever had a birthday in January, let's say it was 50 people, anyone she's ever met in her lifetime, she would write a note in her handwriting. And so many people came up to us at the funeral saying, your mother's words were so beautiful, they changed my life, they made me feel so special, no one's ever written me notes like your mother. And what, like that legacy that she carried on throughout her life, it's just such a special thing that I even treasure to see her handwriting. It makes her feel like she's still here, and it makes me remember to write to people also, and to take time to write an old-fashioned card, not just signing my name, but putting some actual thoughts and words from my heart. It is valuable. Treasures. So it's
Yes.
so old-fashioned, it seems, but at the same time, old-fashioned is like human contact.
I journal all the time, and my daughter texted me the other day and she was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I just took a snapshot of my page on my journal and sent it to her, and she just said, "I love, love, love your handwriting. I always loved that you've journaled my whole life, and I love the fact that you still do that. That's the one constant in your life, and it is the one constant in my life that I've always journaled." So it's funny. We were having a conversation yesterday just about things that I've instilled in their lives, and you don't realize what sticks and what doesn't until they're like, she's 37, and she was saying that I had always instilled in them that they could do anything they wanted with their little hands. They could be anybody they wanted, and just, she said, we don't have confidence problems. You never, allowed us to have confidence. I said, well, I hope I didn't create narcissists, because that too. But anyway, it's just sweet when you hear your children speak your words back to you. And I noticed that when Tadao posted our thing and it said, "Don't put yourself on the clearance rack," she commented, "I knew my mom said that. She said that our whole lives." So I just think it's so sweet
Aw.
that now our children, and Tadao, your family, and people that are close to you, are just seeing us grow in this direction to try to help other people and try to speak love and life and peace and happiness and joy and all the things over people and into their lives. And I don't think people realize how important it is what we say to ourselves, and that we really have the permission to take every thought captive. That's in the word. It's just to hold every thought captive. And we have the permission. Okay, am I going to entertain this negative thought? Am I going to entertain this false fear that could or could not even happen ever? Or am I going to take this thought captive and turn this scenario around? And I just wish I had really listened to that verse years and years and years ago, because I've spoken so much over my life. And I look back now and I think I spoke that into existence. There's so much power. Well, there's life and death in the tongue. What we speak over people or to people, or allow people to speak into us even. I'll tell my kids in a minute, "Don't speak that over me. I'm not going to a nursing home. Don't ever talk about that. Like, don't speak that." It's not that I'm being unrealistic. It's just, don't speak that over me.
But it's so funny that you mentioned about the journal, because I was hoping we could talk about it today, and you just brought it up.
Oh, well, good.
Because
I saw
there's a lot of healing in journaling or even write a letter.
Yes.
When
yes.
I was in a counseling session, I mentioned about it before, but I wrote this letter to my father. I didn't send it, but I wrote how I felt about this divorce and how I felt about my father and everything. It was very healing. Like, I spent a lot of time doubting myself, punishing myself. Maybe I was the reason why they got divorced. But just this one letter wrote everything down. Even I didn't send it, I could forgive my father and myself. So there was a lot of healings. And I'm not really a big journaling person, but like, I write letter every now and then to my friends or to my coworkers. And it's like a decluttering of your mind. When it
Just
stays in your mind, there could be, a lot of doubt and negativities. But when you write it down, you could clarify what you're actually feeling.
it's so much clarity. And just like you're our computer guy, and that we need to close these programs on the computer when we start to film, or it's going to freeze up. And our mind is the same way. If we don't
That's right.
purge, if we don't shut down programs in our mind and journal it out or get it out in some meditation or yoga or whatever, then we are just like when we're freezing on the computer screen. we're clogged up or we just can't get it out. So that's beautiful that you say that, because I connect that with you, because you're saying how many apps do you have open and all the things, and it is like how many avenues, how many hallways, how many doors are open in your mind in this moment. And I honestly think, had I not journaled as hard and deeply as I have, and sometimes are more than others, but I don't know that I would have stayed around in this world, because I was in such pain in so many different ways emotionally. And writing it out does clarify, but it also, you read it and you're like, that's really not as bad as I thought. And another trick is your fears, write down your fears, and then, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen if this comes true? And write that out and look at it and face it. And then what's the best thing that can happen? How's it going to affect me, first of all? So what's the worst thing that could happen? How would that affect me? And what could that outcome be? And once you face those demons, they're more like ants instead of dinosaurs. It
That's right.
shrinks them. It does shrink them. So a lot of people think journaling is a waste of time or a nerd thing to do, but I can tell you it has really
It's
saved
definitely
me.
not a waste of time.
Words are so powerful, and the written word, for me, I've always been a writer, so they're a lot more special. And the reason why I like handwritten notes is because I think it's a really lost art. Letter writing is a lost art. I think if we go back to what we were talking about in one of the other episodes, is instant gratification. The text is that instant gratification. But when you write a letter to someone, you know that you have to wait for them to get it. And then you have to wait for that response. But whenever I used to get a letter, I used to be so excited, the letter among the bills and everything else, right? And especially since I'm in America, in New Jersey, and I was writing to people in England. So that sort of back and forth was so special. And now, you pick up the phone or you can Zoom call and you can text and think, sort of like spark of joy that you got from that I find that's lost, because you can instantly get information. There's something very special about sitting down and having that intention of saying, this is what's going on in my life right now. These are the thoughts. This is what I want to share with you. What you choose to share and what you choose not to share with someone in that letter. It's very special. And also, when we talk about journaling, I'm not a journaler per se. I used to journal a lot. And it's, again, today, it's the one thing that I really want to be consistent in, because I was thinking, I've done really well, in the 10 years since my husband's passed away. I've really kind of held it together. I thought I've been really doing well. I looked at something I journaled in 2016. It was 2 years after my husband passed away. And I was in a really dark place and I was feeling really lost. And I think I kind of glossed over that. I think I hid that or pushed that away and told myself I was okay. Even at the time, I think, I was kind of conning myself into believing I'm all right, I'm going to get through this. And obviously I did get through it, but then I looked at something that I had written 2 years later and I was in that same place, right? I don't know where I'm going. I haven't lost the weight. I got to figure out something about like what I'm going to do with my life. It was this consistent pattern that I was having, and I didn't realize it. But when you go back and you sort of read back, then you see the patterns, you see where you are, and you think, holy crap, it wasn't that right, right? I was in like a bit of a funk. So it's good to have those, to have that history, to remind yourself not to rewrite your history in that way, but not to go back to it too often, so that you are able to move forward and sort of rewrite your future, right? Because that's not what I want. That's not the pattern that I want to stay in. I want to be in this phenomenal place, but I kind of need to know where I was before I can get to that place. So it's a good way,
Yes.
to just check in, see what it's like, but say, I'm not going back there. I'm really moving forward. So
That's beautiful. And also the letters that you and Debbie were talking about. And Tadao, I love that. I love it when I come across a letter that someone sent me 10 years ago that was sentimental to me that,
Yeah.
that I didn't let go of or whatever. And you sit down and you read that, and even if the person's dead or alive, it's just a warm, cozy feeling of, wow, that was such a sweet letter. I have every card my kids have ever given me. I'm sure I'm the most sentimental person in the world. But one of the saddest things when I moved to Guatemala was there's no mail system. Like there's no way to mail something to somebody. And so I do miss that, because I always would mail my kids letters, and on their birthdays, I always wrote a letter or a card, the 10 things I love of you the most. And every year that changes, as they mature and as they grow and as their lives change. But I always try to put the 10 things I love about them the most. And some of them are funny and some of them are very intimate. So I think it's something that they look forward to getting and seeing, and that they can reflect back on, years down the road.
Victoria, I love that. I love hearing all the sweet things that you do so beautifully as a mother with your children and your grandchildren. You're the first one, which I love this about you also. You're the first one to point out ways that you feel like you didn't do well in life, or that you were in a lot of chaos and confusion in some of the past chapters of your life. But every time you share these sweet gestures and the deep love that you have in your heart for the people that you love, especially your children, it's always something so beautiful. Your children are so blessed and lucky to receive the love that you give them. And it just reminds me that, I guess I'm the same too. I can identify some of my faults and the things that I wish I could go back and change as a mom or as a friend or as a spouse. But I think it just reminds me that we're a mixed bag, and that nobody's all or nothing. Even the people that sometimes are the biggest challenge for us to love, that's not all they are. We're so complex and we all have so many sides to us. But I love that journaling for that reason also. I used to use my journaling to look back and to see the person and the struggles and the situation that I had overcome. And it was kind of like looking in a God box, people that make a little God box. And it was recommended way back in the day that whatever's troubling you or confusing you or you're scared about, to just write a little note about what that is. It could just be as simple as listing my husband's struggle with alcoholism or something, and to put that in the God box, because at some point down the road, you're going to open your God box and look in there and realize how much gets taken care of in our life when we look back, and to feel and to know and to build that trust that life is here and supports us and gets us through, and that there's always something new coming. It's not that these things last forever. So using journals and these moments and memories can also give us great appreciation for the care and the growth that we are when we're in the hands of God and the universe, and in our own stories of maturing and our stories of healing. It's just a great way to measure, where we've come.
It is a wonderful measuring tool. And I think that's why I've always done it, was not necessarily to get on there and talk about anyone else or complain. It's always been about my feelings, and I've learned so much. And when I do write it out and reread it or whatever, you think, wow, such an immature thought, or how selfish of you to think that way, or it's grown me as a person. So I think that anybody that journals would find, even if I challenge my clients, 30 days, just do it for 30 days. And you'll see a difference, because it's like having a best friend at the end of your arm all the time. It's just people get lazy and they don't want to write. They would rather type it out. And like my books and stuff I write. And I was reading someone the other day that was like, you have to type it, and nobody's going to sit and read a handwritten manual anymore. They're just not going to do it. But to me, it's so special that I know that will be a part of my legacy when I'm dead and gone. My kids can be like, I can't believe she wrote all this. Like my son always, Mom, you've got to write a book. He has no clue, what all I have written. And it may be published after I'm dead and gone. But I think, Debbie, when you said that about my love for my children, I think that are the only people I've never been afraid to love. I've opened my heart fully to them, and the floodgates of love just flow so freely to them. But they're the only ones I've never been afraid to love fully, unconditionally. And I guess that's why I can give it back the way that I do.
Right.
Wouldn't it be
Like,
great if we could love ourselves the way we unconditionally love our children?
Yes, yes.
Wouldn't we be in a wonderful state then?
Thank you so much for watching AI Breakout, where our AI stands for authentic individuals. Please like and follow, and we love you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.